continuación también tenemos, en verdad es un lujo contar con Paolo Taticchi. Voy a leer brevemente su trayectoria. Él es actualmente profesor de estrategia y sostenibilidad en la UCL, que es la University College London. Es una de las top 10 en el mundo en temas de sostenibilidad. Él también es...
Acá puntualmente te voy a ir a los servicios. Esto era lo que nosotros convencionalmente trabajábamos, ¿no? En la tele,
Creo que
contenido,
hay alguien que
tele,
tenemos a alguien que tiene que apagar su micro. Ya, gracias al switcher. Como cuento, Paolo también es un profesor invitado de SAN. Y es más, él ha estado en Perú varias veces y nos hubiera encantado que esta ponencia la esté dando presencialmente, pero ya tendremos oportunidad el próximo año para el Bicentenario de contar con Paolo acá. Él también es investigador reconocido internacionalmente. Él tiene varias publicaciones, una de las más recientes que es responsabilidad, o mejor dicho, es Corporate Sustainability in Practice, o de alguna manera es sostenibilidad corporativa llevada a la práctica, y sale este diciembre y va a ser publicada por Springer, así que los invito a comprar su publicación. En la UCL, Paolo enseña 3 cursos: estrategia, sostenibilidad y ventaja competitiva, que es justamente el tema de la charla de hoy, y el futuro de las ciudades, que es hacia dónde estamos yendo. Él también es un panelista reconocido y gran speaker. Van a disfrutar, estoy seguro, de su ponencia. Yo tuve el honor de tenerlo en un curso del Imperial College y en verdad es no solo muy entretenido, sino es una eminencia en temas de desarrollo sostenible. Y cierro con esto. En el 2018, él estuvo en el ranking de los 40, ¿ya? World's Business Professors Under 40. Es uno de los 40 mejores profesores de negocios del mundo con menos de 40 años. Así que es un muchachito todavía nuestro amigo Paolo. Así es que le doy la más cordial bienvenida. Paolo, es un honor tenerte con nosotros, y si bien entiendes el español, we will switch to English and give you the welcome. Welcome, Paolo. All the audience is all yours. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much, Rizal. It is truly a pleasure to be with you. I love Peru. I believe in the last 4 years I've visited Lima 3 times every year. Unfortunately, this is the first year I wasn't able to visit Peru for obvious reasons, and it is a real pleasure for me to be with you, at least virtually, in occasion of such an important event. So thank you, first of all, for the invitation. Now, as you anticipated, my area of expertise is corporate sustainability. This is kind of my passion, my research interest, most of my teaching. And I thought in this occasion to speak a bit about how sustainability can contribute to, develop a competitive advantage in industry, and to kind of give our audience an overview of where we are coming from with this discussion and where we are going. So hopefully it is going to be relevant and interesting. So I would like kind of really to start this presentation by discussing where all of this is coming from. Of course, the topic of sustainability in business is a part of the wider topic of a sustainable development. And I believe many in the audience will be familiar with the popular definition that was given by United Nations many years ago that defines sustainability as this idea of leaving to the future generations the same resources we had the opportunity to benefit of. So something which is very important about this idea of sustainability and sustainable development is that ultimately, we are focusing on quality of life. Ultimately, we are doing this for our benefit. So I think, this is something very important, is something, to keep in mind, that, what we do in the space of sustainability is going to have an impact on our life and an impact on the life of our children and future generations. Something I found interesting was a question I received a number of months ago when I was visiting Spain for a conference. And in that occasion, I was interviewed by a journalist. And this journalist asked me, Paolo, is this, really bad? Is this really, a terrible time? We always read in the news about climate change, about disasters of different kind, about problems. Is the situation so bad? Where the world is going? And I kind of, thought it was an interesting question, the one he was posing me. And actually, if we look at, what we have achieved in the recent centuries as a society, we do need to point out that, as a society, we have hit incredible achievements. Okay, we have been able to, move people out of extreme poverty. We have been able to promote education around the world. We have been able to promote and diffuse democratic systems.
¿Sí?
We have been able to give access to vaccines around the world. So as a society overall, in the recent centuries, we have, made an important journey. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that today, the trajectory is still, that positive. And this doesn't mean that we don't have, any challenges today. And in fact, I believe today we do have quite a few challenges as a society. Now, the slide that you see on the screen is a slide that I typically use with my students in London when I open my sustainability classes. And this slide is kind of combining a number of provocative pictures that basically point out to a number of problems. Let me mention a few. Climate change is, an obvious, problem that we have as a society. By many is defined as the greatest challenge of our society. We know that climate change is happening. We know that climate change is driven by human activities. And we know that we do need to take action, and the action we are going to take in the next decades, and our ability to take this action is really going to impact quality of life in this planet in the next centuries. So that's kind of, is a big problem, is a problem that is, addressed by governments, but is also a problem that is making a direct impact on business industrial activities. And today we see companies worldwide that are developing strategies to deal with the effects of a changing climate. We are aware, of issues in developing countries where very often working conditions are not good. The slide that you see at the bottom that maybe some of you recognized in the left corner is suicide nets at Foxconn Technology Group. I don't know if you remember the story, but this became a massive problem for Apple computers a number of years ago. Because Foxconn Technology Group is one of the largest manufacturers of electronics in the world. They manufacture in China many of the Apple, Samsung products that we buy. And about 10 years ago, at a certain point, they became very infamous because some employees committed suicide jumping from the buildings of the company. And as a consequence of that, the company decided to install suicide nets in the factory. And these suicide nets are still there. So, you know, working conditions are a real problem in many countries today. And, you know, this is very true in fashion. We know that in fashion, we do have several sustainability problems. And very often when we buy, you know, a t-shirt in London, the price we pay doesn't take into account of the social costs that other countries are, you know, facing because of, you know, certain type of industrial activities. And then, you know, we have many other problems. We have political problems. We have a war in many countries. We have issues associated to wastes and so on. And of course, you know, technology playing a positive or negative role in all of these. Now, if you are a multinational company today, so let's kind of try to make a real example. Let's say, you know, Unilever. Unilever is a very big corporation with operations in more than 170 countries around the world. And basically, in different countries, they deal with different type and the different combinations of these problems. So today for corporations, managing these type of sustainability problems is a real issue. And I believe, you know, this is why it is so important that today we start discussing very seriously sustainability. And it's kind of, you know, interesting that when you look at the global risks that we face as a society and the global risks that, you know, can affect economies and impact business activities, you will kind of, you know, you can easily appreciate that many of these risks come from environmental and social factors. So, you know, this is why, you know, today the problems of the planet become real problems for business. And of course, you know, the pandemic, the recent pandemic is a great example. You know, we were aware of this risk. It was a risk classified as a very low probability, but very high impact. And unfortunately today, we know that, you know, how serious, you know, this type of risk is when it materializes. And there is another challenge. The challenge is that many of these problems are connected. And this is why today it is extremely important that we kind of, you know, think about system thinking, you know, the idea to understand you know, different type of systems and how they interact. And, you know, the idea to understand that decisions that we take, for example, within the fashion industry are going to impact other industries and other systems as well. So there is, you know, really, you know, this kind of system thinking approach is, you know, becoming very, very important these days. Of course, as a society, there is a framework, and, you know, this is the framework set by the United Nations with the Sustainable Development Goals. And what is interesting is that this framework today is also used by companies to basically assess their, you know, impacts as well as their contributions to a sustainable development. Now, I would like to speak for 5 minutes about, you know, what is modern corporate sustainability, because this field is relatively new. Let's be honest. It's relatively new in academia. It's relatively new in industry, and because it's new, you know, perspectives and ideas have, you know, evolved quite quickly. Now, the origins of kind of the sustainability movement probably go back in the 50s. You know, many would recognize, you know, this book from Bowen, a Nobel Prize from the States, as kind of a very important book signing the beginning of this sustainability conversation. And in particular, at the time, it was referring to corporate social responsibility, and was basically pointing out that these type of issues should be managed by organizations, should be, you know, considered in decision-making processes, and should be part of strategic planning. So it's not something that, you know, you analyze or consider on the side. Actually, is something core to the activity of business. And then, you know, some of you may be familiar with this kind of famous quote from another Nobel Prize in the 70s. Milton Friedman was saying that, you know, the only social responsibility of business is to increase its profits. Now, his kind of theory, his kind of his view was framed in a theory that, you know, by the way, is kind of still valid today. We don't have time to explain this today, but there are kind of very good points at the base of that theory. But of course, you know, his view was a view where business was substantially disconnected from society. Okay, and you know, today we know that you know, that is not the case anymore. Today we are aware that, you know, companies should play a role in society, and they do play an important role in society. So in the last kind of, you know, 20 years, 30 years, we have seen a number of concepts emerging. One concept is indeed still popular today, and is the concept of the triple bottom line. So this idea that companies should actively manage not only the economic financial performance of the organization, but also the social and environmental performance. So this idea that they do need to kind of, you know, look at the environment, look at society, and understand the role they play. More recently, we have seen you know, this topic of ESG emerging. You know, this term ESG really came from the finance world, and basically is the idea that, you know, investments today should be driven taking into account environmental, social, and governance factors. And again, this means that companies should use ESG criteria in decision making. And one of the latest kind of, you know, thoughts about sustainability is kind of this concept that came from a very popular strategist, Michael Porter, together with Kramer, and they speak about you know, creating a shared value, and they argue that companies can develop a real sustainable competitive advantage in industry, not only if they run kind of, you know, companies in a sustainable way, but also if they align the purpose of these businesses with big challenges faced by society. And another important message arrived only 2 years ago, in 2018, when Larry Fink, CEO at BlackRock, the largest asset management organization in the world, sent out a letter to the CEOs around the world saying, you know, you need to understand that sustainability is happening. It is not a myth anymore. And basically said, as a company, first of all, we are introducing a sustainability criteria to drive our investment decisions. Second, we are going to use our presence in the board to drive the sustainability agendas in your organizations. Now, this was, you know, a very pivotal moment in the field of sustainability, because for the first time there was a very strong message coming from finance, from the investors community. And of course they do have a lot of power, and this means that, you know, they can really push companies to change. And if the kind of, if the big multinational companies change their behaviors, this basically comes with a ripple effect on all value chains and supply chains around the world. And this is why these are the type of companies are these are the type of topics are relevant today everywhere. So in my new book, the one you mentioned before, that is coming out in December, we basically offer a definition of what we consider modern corporate sustainability. And then this definition was validated with a number of practitioners in industry. And basically we argue that corporate sustainability is first of all, a business approach. So it's about the strategies, about business models, it's about creating value. And basically the idea that sustainability, if approached correctly, should lead to competitive advantage, should lead to profit, and to basically the creation of a shared value over time. And we emphasize that this cannot be done alone by companies. You need basically companies to work with others, to work with other stakeholders in industry, in ecosystems, in order to create value for a variety of stakeholders. And basically, it is important to integrate, ESG criteria in decision making. Now, I think in this context, let me say something about the work you're doing in Peru. I had the opportunity to read a bit about the work of the FAIR cluster, the Fashion Alliance to Innovate Responsibly, and I found that idea, that movement, quite an impressive one. I think first of all, it's a good idea. You put together relevant stakeholders to not only discuss sustainability, but actually to discuss sustainability in a way to build a competitive advantage for the industry. So that's the right perspective, okay? And second, I believe you started discussing some very important projects, circular economy, how you can integrate the circular economy in your business models, certifications, education, how you can, educate stakeholders in industry in order to approach, to face this type of transformation that is needed in the industry. I believe, these are very important projects that you are, developing in Peru at the moment. So to summarize, what is the kind of the business case today for sustainability, for companies, for industry? And let me say that, today, if you start searching on the web, you can easily find that, top consulting firms like McKinsey, like Accenture, like BCG, these days publish continuously reports on this topic. And again, this is a sign of, how important this topic is today. And kind of, if you start reading these reports, you realize that substantially the business case is really built on three factors. The first factor is the factor of managing risks. Today, you have a variety of stakeholders asking for sustainability. And this kind of really varies from industry to industry, varies from your position in the value chain. But in some industries, you have, consumers driving, the sustainability discussion. In other industries, you have employees pushing companies to become more sustainable. In other industries, you have governments pushing for sustainability, and so on. And very often a combination of these pushes. And this is, definitely the case of the fashion industry. In the fashion industry, there is definitely demand from consumers. This is very evident. You have, government and regulators pushing for sustainability and kind of driving change. Investors today, fashion investors start using sustainability criteria. And then, you also have a push coming from the local communities, from suppliers. So companies are, do need to kind of take decisions and need to drive change in order to deal with these pressures. I think, an interesting one is kind of the pressure coming from the new generation. You know, if you are in the fashion industry today, and you know you're running an organization, maybe a global organization, a large organization, you know, millennials are, you know, becoming your main customers. And there is a lot of research showing that millennials value sustainability particularly high, far more than our generation. So if you don't have a sustainable business, if you don't have sustainable products, if you don't have a sustainable brand today in the fashion industry, you will struggle to sell your product and services to millennials. So this is, of course, very important for B2C companies, of course. Then, you know, there is another factor which is driving the business case for sustainability, and that is the factor of opportunity. In the field of sustainability, opportunity can be summarized really in terms of, you know, strengthening your brand, in terms of creating revenue and profit opportunities through sustainability positioning, and also, you know, the possibility to reduce your costs, because very often sustainability applied to operations means that you optimize your operations. So basically you reduce the costs through sustainability initiatives. So there are kind of many opportunities out there that, you know, can be explored by companies. I remember a post on social media from, I believe it was the World Economic Forum a couple of years ago, that today there are at least 10 companies that basically generate over $1 billion revenue from sustainable products and services. So there are some companies that, you know, through sustainability positioning have really secured the positions of dominance in the industry because of their sustainability performance. So there is a real opportunity there. Also today, the link between sustainability performance and financial performance is becoming very clear. There is a lot of research in this field, and you can, you know, find many reports that will basically show that companies that are assessed as sustainable also perform, also show a superior financial performance in industry. So that is, you know, another, you know, obvious element of the business case. If you are able to become more sustainable as a company, this is going to have a direct impact on your financial performance. And then there is a third factor, which, you know, many tend to underestimate, many tend to forget, but I believe, you know, it should be mentioned as well. And I believe, you know, the slide is quite clear, is, you know, the factor of values, is the factor of legacy. You know, if you are an entrepreneur, if you're an executive in an organization today, what type of legacy you know, you want to have? You know, are you creating a value just for shareholders, or are you building a sustainable organization and you are, you know, creating a value for a variety of stakeholders? I think, you know, that is another important question and you know, point of reflection for industry today. And, you know, I really like this quote from the founder of Patagonia. Patagonia is one of these companies that today in kind of the fashion, you know, apparel industry is, you know, labeled as a sustainability leader. And the founder in this quote is saying, Patagonia will never be completely socially responsible. It will never make a totally sustainable, non-damaging product, but is committed to trying. And I think, you know, this is very important. You know, today, if you are in industry, you do need an agenda. You do need to have a clear plan of what you're going to do to become a better organization, okay? To become a more sustainable, it means that you are becoming a better organization. So what are kind of the steps to become more sustainable? First of all, there are many challenges there, and kind of an obvious challenge is that very often companies have kind of competing priorities. So my advice to companies is really to analyze what is happening, in your industry very carefully. To analyze how stakeholders are, approaching this topic of sustainability differently. And based on that, build your business case based on opportunities and risks. If you have a solid business case, this is going to help you to overcome the challenges that you are going to have in your journey of transformation, and is going to help you to execute your sustainability strategies. Now, there are many frameworks that can be used for designing and implementing strategies. But very often these frameworks they have in common a number of factors. You do need to review your value chain activities. This means you do need to rethink the way you operate. That is very important. Then you also need to redesign your products and services. Okay, so of course, products and services are the element of a business that is in the market, is in the hands of consumers and customers. So you do need to redesign products and services. And another common factor these days is that sustainability is driving major changes in industry. So you may want to explore the opportunity of rethinking existing business models. These three elements are very important steps in the design of a sustainability strategy for an organization. I'm going to an end. I'm probably closing in a minute or so, and then we can take some questions. But as an element for a final reflection, I wanted to share the cover of this book. This is not a new book. This was published in 1975, and I know very well one of the two authors, Ian Doman, because he's a good friend based in London, a former executive in the tech industry, in the software industry. And, they wrote this book in 1975, kind of really highlighting the importance of this topic. And to me, what is very important of this book is first of all, the title, Business Survival and Social Change. Is not the other way around. This topic of sustainability is not only impacting the ability of firms to compete, but in the future, in the next years, it's going to become a matter of survival. You're going to see companies disappearing because they are not sustainable enough. So this is a very important topic today. And I really kind of wanted to remember to our audience that changes in industry can be dramatic. This is the cover of Forbes in 2007. And only 13 years ago, Forbes was celebrating Nokia as the king of the mobile phones industry. Because that year, Nokia was hitting 1 billion customers. Probably not many of you have got a Nokia in your pockets. And this is because, the industry changed rapidly, and Nokia didn't understand that new drivers were, characterizing competition in the future. The same could happen with sustainability. There are many companies that today are not engaging with sustainability because they believe that is just a fancy topic that is not real. Industry has changed significantly in the last 10 years because of sustainability, and it's going to change even more in the next 10 years. So today is kind of really time to take action. It's really time for change. It's time to take this seriously. I believe this is the goal I wanted to, is the goal of my presentation, and is kind of was really to send this message very loud to all of you, with the hope that this event and this session is an opportunity to reflect on this together. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Paolo. I wish we were live so we could give you a big hand of applause. I mean, this was very, very illuminating. I have a couple of questions from the audience, so if Please. You would be so kind to stick around. The first question comes from James. He says, very illuminating presentation, Dr. Taticchi. I have two questions for you. The first one is, in your book, Corporate Sustainability in Practice, where has the practice been most notable? In producing countries like Peru, in corporations who own the brands, or the owner of the brands themselves? Where have you seen this practice most notable? Producing countries, corporations who own the brands, or the owner of the brands themselves, which could be the retailers? Where are you seeing the changes?
Actually, we are kind of using the word practice with different meaning in the book. Basically, we use the word practice to refer that companies need to integrate their sustainability strategies into the business strategy. If they don't do that, very often they are not able to get the desired results from their sustainability efforts. Now, to kind of to answer kind of the question, James' question, I think what I have seen is that today there is a kind of an emerging practice coming in many different contexts. You see, for example, certain sustainability practices emerging in Europe, and that could be, for example, the case of sustainability certifications, but you also see other practices emerging, for example, in the States, and an example of that could be, for example, sustainable finance. You see practices emerging in specific industries that at a certain point become popular in other industries as well. And you could, for example, look at the example of packaging and sustainable packaging. A lot of attention in the food industry that started years ago, and today the topic of sustainable packaging is a hot topic in many industries. So I believe you have kind of practices spreading in different ways, and at a certain point, companies and governments adopt these practices, and they become more standardized.
Mm-hmm. Do you see these practices changing due to the pandemic?
That's a very good question. I believe that today, that's a tough question. I believe, today there is a fantastic opportunity. The pandemic has put under pressure, business, governments, countries everywhere in the world. At the same time, in order to restart, in order to kind of to offer opportunities to companies to recover and kind of start growing again, we basically need to create different kind of incentives. So today, if you look at the way governments are framing these incentives, many of these incentives are aligned with the goal of a green economy, of a decarbonized economy, of a sustainable infrastructure, and so on. So what is happening is that this is a fantastic opportunity to push industry and countries in the direction of sustainability, because governments are gonna throw a lot of money there to support companies to make investments, to grow again. So I think this is a good time for sustainability. The second reason why I believe it is a good time is that I believe once again we have realized how challenging it is to live in a non-sustainable world. You know, during the pandemic, for example, it became very clear that the infection was spreading more aggressively in regions where pollution was higher. So there was a kind of this link between the pandemic and climate change and pollution. And that's why today we do need to kind of really look at these problems from the perspective of system thinking in order to take action. So I think, you know, out of the pandemic, the sustainability topic is stronger than ever.
Yeah, and that really like that systemic approach, because sometimes our sector affects other sectors and vice versa. I wasn't seeing that. I have two more questions from the audience, Paolo. The next one is anonymous, but it reads like follows. One of the challenges the industry faces in terms of sustainability is the room to increase prices. Even if consumers have reported that they will pay more, the room was about €1 for a t-shirt, which is very tight.
Yeah.
Maybe with a lot of greenwashing. So the question for you is, how would the business model need to change in order to be able to adapt sustainable practices with this pricing limitation?
This is, I believe, an excellent question. A good answer takes an hour. So I'm going to give you a bad answer in 1 minute. The answer is not really new business models. The answer lies in redistribution of value, economic value in the value chain. This means if you analyze the profit in the value chain, there are certain actors that, you know, make a lot of profit, and certain actors that in the value chain make less profit. And very often you are penalized if you are in the supply side of the value chain, while if you are the brand selling the product to customers, very often your profit is higher, you know, for obvious reasons. So the idea is that you do need to rethink how this profit is distributed in the value chain. And in order for that to happen, you do need to kind of create win-win conditions for all of the stakeholders involved. Now, you need to understand that today these brands are receiving a lot of pressure from customers. So basically, you know, and the reality is that very often their sustainability problems are not at the corporate level, are at the supply chain level. So I believe at a certain point, and is happening, companies will understand that they do need to offer, you know, better deals to suppliers in order for them to have a slightly higher profit. And that additional profit can be used to improve the sustainability of operations. And this is in the interest of everyone in the value chain. So I believe this is going to happen because of the pressure coming from customers to the brands, and the brands realizing that they do need to offer better deals to suppliers in order to become more sustainable, because their sustainability affects their sustainability.
No, I really like that part of redirecting the value in your value chain. I think that's where the answer is. So I think it's a pretty good answer, although we didn't have an hour, but we will be looking forward to that one. Next question comes from Juan Jose. He said, very good presentation. As we see, sustainability is coming with profitability. In Peru, we have a lot of companies that are producing garments today for brands like Lacoste, Polo, Armani, Lululemon, etc. Should we wait for those brands to ask for transformation of our processes, or should we transform for what seems inevitable? And the next question is there any country today that has positioned itself as being the most sustainable in the world? The first question then it would be, should we transform now or wait?
Very good questions. Concerning the first one, I believe the answer could be both. This means, you could, because, this is a strategy at the end, right? This means you could try to be a first mover in this industry. You could try to be a first mover in terms of sustainability performance. And you could try to outperform other suppliers who are competitors in the industry from a sustainability perspective. So basically, you could try to use sustainability as an additional element of competitive advantage. So of course, first mover strategies are an option. They are not the only option. Because of a pressure, affecting brands at a certain point, I believe, these big companies, these big clients will push more and more suppliers to become, sustainable. So it's a matter of time. So companies, I believe, have the option to decide if they wanted to try to develop a competitive advantage now, or they wanted to follow the pressure coming from their clients and basically transform slowly later. But the transformation is going to happen. It's just a matter of time. Concerning the second question, if there is a country that is particularly recognized for the sustainability efforts, I believe there is one country that probably is recognized for that, is in your part of the world, not in mine, and it's probably Costa Rica. I think Costa Rica is a good example of a country that in the last 10 years, as a country, developed a very big, strong strategy focused on a sustainable development, focused on the transformation of industry. And I believe that today it is recognized for these efforts. So it is an interesting case study. If you look at what they are doing in the field of sustainable tourism, for example, or in the field of sustainable coffee production, in the field of social innovation, they have got some very interesting stories. So it's an interesting case study at the country level.
Interesting. We have another question from Jorge, which is the following. Textile industry contaminates a lot. Is it because of lack of purpose or lack of incentives to reshape things?
I think it is for different reasons, including those mentioned. I kind of, we need to be pragmatic here, Rizal. Industry developed in a certain way. And kind of very often, this development was necessarily sustainable, okay? So my suggestion is, let's kind of draw a line. Let's draw a virtual line and kind of forget about the past. Let's look at the future. And basically, my suggestion to companies is draw this line, assess what your performance and impacts are today from a sustainability perspective, and develop a strategy to improve in the future. Okay, we are not, using sustainability as a discussion, as an opportunity to blame companies. That's not the objective. The goal here is basically to drive change, positive change in the future. So I think, what we want today from leaders in industry is to make a commitment, to improve, to manage, in a serious way, the triple bottom line of business. And this is going to be positive for everyone. Companies that will not understand this, in my opinion, very soon are going to be out of business.
Perfect. Last question, Paolo. I have two questions, but it's basically the same. It's about certifications in sustainability.
Yeah.
Are they relevant, or they're going to be intrinsic in your value proposition? And the key question here is there one that the textile sector should be looking, or what would you recommend them to do if we are just starting to certificate our sustainability? what your recommendation would be.
Yeah, I think, you know, sustainability certifications are important. Let me explain you why. In one of my slides, I was mentioning that an opportunity for companies is to use sustainability to strengthen their reputation and their brands. Okay, and this is true in the B2C, B2B, B2G, you know, environment, wherever you operate. Now, if that is the case, this means that to have a good sustainability performance is not enough. You need to communicate it. If you wanted to attract ESG investments, this means that out there, an investor is able to, you know, check information on your company, is able to access information about your company, is able to understand your sustainability performance. And this is possible only if you communicate it. Okay, so sustainability certifications and sustainability reporting are, you know, tools that are aimed at facilitating this process of communication. So I believe it is in the interest of companies to, you know, adopt these type of certifications and adopt these type of reporting tools. Indeed, there are, you know, some established ones, you know, in the context of, you know, certifications, you know, of course, you know, the ISO family is a well-known one, certifications like, you know, ISO 14000 for the environment, you know, are popular certifications. In terms of the standards for reporting, I would probably mention two of them. One is definitely the GRI, the Global Reporting Initiative. Today, it is probably the you know, most popular framework for reporting in the world, adopted by the large majority of large organizations, but also, you know, adopted by small and medium companies. And another framework, which is more recent and becoming, you know, very popular, is the framework of the B corporations, corporations with a purpose. And this is, you know, I think is an interesting framework, very suitable for small organizations, for startups. So I would probably encourage companies to look into these, you know, frameworks. But as I said, you know, sustainability certifications and reporting at the end are about transparency, and the transparency is definitely one of the pillars of sustainability.
Certainly. Paolo, thank you so much for your time, for sharing these great insights, and we will definitely be in touch because we will have a course with you soon in November. So thank you so much for being in touch with us and being part of this dream. And we hope to have you in Peru next year. We will be 200 years old in 2021, and we should be able to celebrate with a good ceviche, a good pisco sour, and you should try the great textiles that will be waiting for you there. Thank you so much, Paolo.
I look forward to that. Thank you very much for the invitation. Best of luck with the rest of the event, and congratulations for what you're doing.